Okay, good morning. Today is Friday, the 29th day of Menachem of Hakodesh Elul. This Shabbos is going to be a very, very special Shabbos. Rosh Chodesh entering the month of Elul, the month that the king is in the field, Hashem is with us. And it is a very special time to learn this chapter we're learning now, the letter 9 in Ageras HaKodesh. We started yesterday, we're finishing today. And in this letter, it's a very, we can use even the word like radical letter. The Alter Rebbe is really guiding us and educating us what really a Jew, how he should really live his life. And that we need to live our lives, our private life, should be a godly, a godly life. And even when we care for a family, for our children, you can care for family and children and do it because of selfish reasons also. You want to educate your children and have them behave the right way. You're sitting with your children in a restaurant, and if the children misbehave, you get all upset. Why do you get upset? You can tell them behave in the public. Why? Because it makes you look bad. Think about it. So what is the right way of dealing with children? Is that these are the children, these are your children, these are God's children. These are children with an neshama, with a godly soul. And to educate the child is something you need to do, but to guide them to be who the child can be, representing Hashem in this world. The same thing is with the giving of the tzedakah, the giving of the charity. Giving charity can be, it's a noble thing. The whole world appreciates people who are charitable and helping other people. It's a beautiful thing. But the Jewish way is Hashem, the Alter Rebbe tells us here that he demands a little deeper. He demands from us to be charitable, not because it's you who are doing something. You're fulfilling the mission that God put you here in the first place. Hashem gave you the money. You're merely acting as a bank teller. It's not your money, it's Hashem's money. And you're doing Hashem's work in this world. So that's the Alter Rebbe gave the introduction in this letter, and today we're going to learn the bottom line. The Alter Rebbe addresses the people, telling them the way they should act with tzedakah, even to give and sacrifice their Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination that wants to hold back. And Alter Rebbe says that the mitzvah of tzedakah, acting charitable, acts of kindness and goodness, and giving tzedakah specifically, this is the mission of our generation. To the point, he says, it is even more than studying Torah today. Although our sages tell us, we say every morning in the davening, Talmud Torah keneged kulam, studying Torah overpowers everything else. So the Alter Rebbe says, and this is really a novelty what the Alter Rebbe says, that this statement was true in the past. In the time of the Talmud, when the main focus of serving Hashem was through studying the Torah, that was the main thing. But today's day and age, says the Alter Rebbe, it is our job, our mission is to elevate godliness, which is in the lowest levels, and we'll explain it in a minute. And that is done through the mitzvahs of action, specifically through the mitzvah of tzedakah. And of course, the questions may rise. How can the Alter Rebbe say that a statement of the Talmud of the Mishnah does not apply today? I mean, we know the Torah doesn't change. And the Rebbe mentions this, and it says that this is also based in the Torah. Because in the Torah it says that if you study Torah and there is a mitzvah to be done that nobody else can do, you have to stop studying Torah and go do the mitzvah. So in our case, in our situation, yes, of course, we need to study Torah. We need to daven and we need to study Torah. But the main focus should be in helping people, in doing tzedakah. You're going to work, make a lot of money, so you can give a lot of tzedakah. So you're going to work is doing tzedakah. So let's see. I'm going to read it inside, and I'm going to explain it further as we go along. Says the Alter Rebbe, Al came therefore ahuvai achayai, my beloved ones, my brethren. Simeno levavchem le'ele advorim aneimorim biktzora me'oid. Direct your hearts to these words, which are expressed very briefly. And face to face, please God, I will speak of them at length. We're waiting for that, face to face, to see the Alter Rebbe, of course, coming of Mashiach. He is amazing, we'll be seeing face to face the Alter Rebbe. Because the Alter Rebbe, I'm telling you here in short and face to face, I will explain in length. Heyois, kol iker avodas Hashem ba'itim alolo. How in this time, be'ikvois Mashiach, avodas tzedakah. In this time, when the approaching footsteps of Mashiach are close upon us, the principal service of Hashem is the service of charity. Called Be'ikvis Mashiach, the footsteps of the heels of Mashiach. As our sages of blessed memory have said, Ein Israel Nigolim Ella Bitzdaka. Israel will be redeemed only through charity. That's a quote from the Rambam Maimonides. And here says the Alter Rebbe, the statement, what we just said, Eloi Amru Rabbeinu Zichroina Mevracha. Talmud Torah Shakul Keneged Gmilos Chasadim. Our sages of blessed memory did not say that the study of Torah is equivalent to the performance of acts of loving kindness. Elobimeim. That was only said in their days. Says the Mishnah in Peah states that the study of Torah is equivalent to them all, as we say it every morning, meaning to all the mitzvahs previously enumerated in the Mishnah, and these include Gmilas Chasadim, the performance of acts of loving kindness. Says the Alter Rebbe, that statement was true in their days. Why? The Talmud Torah hoya ikera avoda etzlam, for with them, the principal area of divine service was the study of Torah. Which is why at that time there were great scholars, Tanoim and Amoraim. Those are the Tanaic sages. The Amoraim were the sages of the Talmud. There were tremendous giant scholars in those days. However, in a time when the approaching of footsteps of Mashiach are close upon us, Shenoflo sukas David ad bechinas raglaim ve'akevaim shi bechinas asiyah. As the sukkah of David has fallen to the level of feet and heels, meaning to the level of asiyah. What is the Alter Rebbe saying? To explain it in short, the job that each and every generation has is to reveal godliness. Hashem created the world to bring his light in a place where he's not found. However, the way Hashem did it was in stages. Just like there is the body, there is the head, there is the heart, there's the feet. First, the head is elevated, then the heart is refined, and then the action. In the time of the Beis HaMikdash, in the time of the temple, there was great sages. There was a godliness revealed. People were able to sense godliness. And then they went to Golus, the temple was destroyed, and the Shekhinah, the divine presence, went down. So then at that time still there was in the level of the logic, the intellect. In the words of the Kabbalah, in terms of Kabbalah, there is the world of Atzilus, which is the world of emanation. Godliness is revealed. Then it goes down to the world of Beriah. Beriah is the world of understanding. So godliness is concealed, but still you can connect with understanding. This is why at that time, the main focus was the studying of the Torah. And there were great, great Talmudic scholars. Then go to the next generation, was the world more connected with the world of Yetzirah, a world of emotions, davening and connecting emotionally, spiritually. And now, says the Alter Rebbe, in the time of Ikves Mashiach, we are in the footsteps of Mashiach, the heels of Mashiach. It says the Sukkah of David fell all the way down to the bottom. Sukkah of David represents the Shekhinah, God's presence. King David represents Malchus, the kingdom, which represents Atzilus, the Malchus of Atzilus. The kingdom, the royalty of Atzilus, when that falls down. When this falls down to the bottom, it means that we now have a job to elevate and to purify the bottom. Just like when something falls down, a building falls down, anything that falls down, you need to elevate whatever fell, you have to lift it up from the bottom. Because if you're going to lift it up from the top, only the top floor is going to lift up, the rest is going to stay at the bottom. Right now, when you need to lift up the Shekhinah, divine presence, that fell down into action, Hashem made it that we in our generation mostly should be busy and occupied with doing, working, having businesses, dealing with actions. What is the ultimate mitzvah that is related to action? There are many mitzvahs that are connected with action. Putting on tefillin is a mitzvah you do with action. Lighting Shabbos candles is a mitzvah you're doing with action. Many mitzvahs you do with action. Action represents the bottom. But what is the ultimate mitzvah that connects with action? Is the mitzvah of charity, giving charity. And why is that? Because any mitzvah you do with action, the action is mainly used as a tool, but what are you doing? When you do the mitzvah, you're doing a spiritual act. That's why if someone, a goy, a Gentile who doesn't understand what you're doing, is looking at you, wrapping up a tefillin in the middle of the street or in the middle of the airport, he's looking at you, what are you doing? He doesn't see the action. It's the spirituality behind it. Any mitzvah you do, going and shaking the lulav and asking, what are you doing? What is this? Yes, you're doing an act, but you're acting spiritually. But when you give tzedakah, any guy that sees you giving charity, they will connect, they relate to this. You're helping someone in need. That is the mitzvah of the bottom action. And in fact, when you give tzedakah, it doesn't matter how much thoughts, what kind of meditations you have when you do the mitzvah. The bottom line is to helping someone who is in need. And says the Alter Rebbe further, he says, when you give tzedakah, you're helping someone who does not have anything on his own. That is the definition of charity. You're giving someone who does not have. This way you are acting godly when Hashem comes and shines and brings his light into the bottom, the world of Asiya, the world that we have nothing. In the higher spiritual worlds, those worlds are somehow still worthy. They are more spiritual. There's sense godliness there. You can see it's not completely have nothing. But in this world of Asiya, that we have really nothing, no godliness whatsoever, and Hashem comes and reveals himself to us. And he gives us life every single day. When we are doing that same thing, especially in the time of Mashiach, when the main work is action, because that is what is going to reveal godliness in the world and to bring redemption to the world. This is why this mitzvah, action, is acting godly and bringing godliness into the bottom line. So let's see again how the Alter Rebbe says this inside. However, in a time when the approaching of the footsteps of Mashiach are close upon us, שנוף לו סוכת דוד על בחינת רגליים והעקביים שבחינת עשייה. As the sukkah of David has fallen to a level of feet and heels, meaning the level of Asiya. It says, meaning the sphere called Malchus of Atzilus, the Shechina, that vests itself in the lower world of Beria, Yetzirah and Asiya, also known as Sukkah of David. For David, as the king of Israel, was a Merkava. Merkava means a chariot, to Malchus of Atzilus, and that has fallen to the lowest level of Asiya. So therefore, Ein derech ledovka ba be'emes, there is no way of truly cleaving unto it, unto the Shechina, and transforming the darkness of the world into its light. How do you do it? The only way to do it is ki'im b'bchinas asiya gamkin, except through a corresponding category of action, and not through intellect and speech alone, as in Torah study. Shehi ma'aseh tzedakah, namely the act of charity. So of course we have to study Torah. Of course we have to pray. We have to do everything. But the focus of today's generation, the work, the mission of today's generation, is doing acts of mitzvahs, the acts of tzedakah. וידוע למשכילים שבחינת עשייה בליכוס, מבחינת השפועס והמשוחס החיוס למטה מטו, למנדלס למיגמי כלום, as is known to the scholarly, that action with reference to divinity is the diffusion and downward flow of vitality to the lowest depths, to he who has nothing of his own. So Hashem brings the light to us, to Asiya, that we have nothing of our own, and we are acting godly by giving tzedakah, to give to someone who is in need. Continues the Alter Rebbe and says, and he concludes this letter, and he says as follows, whoever sacrifices his impulse in this respect, with respect to charity, because you got to sacrifice your impulse in order to give, to open up your heart. It's not easy. And opens his hand and heart. He thereby causes the other side, the evil side of the universe, to be subjugated. That's step number one, to subjugate the evil, and you do against his will. And step number two, and converts the darkness into the light of God, blessed be he. Who in time when the footsteps of Mashiach are close upon us, he dwells over us in a state of action, And that's the key. Where do we find ultimately the greatest revelation of Hashem in this time is in action, the world of action. So in doing mitzvahs of action, we connect closer, and we transform the darkness into light through doing mitzvahs of action. And therefore it says, "V'yizke lirois ayin be'ayin b'shuv Hashem tzia in chulu." Moreover, he will merit to behold eye to eye the returning to Zion, returning of Hashem, God's returning to Zion. So at that time, the physical eye, though yet retaining its physicality, will behold godliness as it beholds by the supernal eye. Thus, within this physicality of the world of Asiya, there will be revealed the level of certainty in spiritual perception, which is called vision, liros, the level that far surpasses the furthest attainment of the intellect. So that's as a result of mitzvahs of action. We will be able to perceive God with physical eye, just like with action. And this is the end of this letter. The mission, what Alter Rebbe tells us in our generation, is to overcome, to sacrifice our impulses. There's a thing from the Kotzker Rebbe. It says, we say it every morning, talking about the offering of the sacrifices. It says, "V'shochat oisai al yerech hamizbeach tzafeina lifnei Hashem." Bring the sacrifice to slaughter it on the side of the altar on the north side. So the Kotzker Rebbe said that those are three areas where today one needs to fight his Yetzer Hara. The three areas are: we have a fight that we have to struggle with we're talking about relationships, not to have immoral relationships. We struggle when it comes to eating properly, eating kosher and eating properly. And we struggle about the money. And we give tzedakah to do the right things, to earn the money the right way, and to do the right things with the money. Those are three areas that we struggle and that we have to slaughter the evil inclination. Where do we see it in this verse? So he says, "V'shochat oisai," so slaughter it al yerech. Yerech means the side of the mizbeach, but yerech also means the thigh, which represents the relationships that you need to be careful there. And a mizbeach is the altar. What is the altar? The altar eats the animal. Talking about the food. When you're eating food, you got to be careful. And tzafayna in the north represents money, represents wealth, because it says whoever wants to be wealthy, it says if you want to be smart, you face to the south. If you want to be wealthy, you face to the north. And so tzafayna, the north, represents wealth. Those are the things, the areas that we need to work on ourselves and to sacrifice. But again, the bottom line is, as the Alter Rebbe said here, what is the action of today's generation is mitzvahs of action, specifically mitzvah of tzedakah. Thank you so much for joining, and we should all have a very good Hakodesh and a good Shabbos, and a ksiva v'chasima teva, and let's enter the month of Elul with teshuva, mitich simcha, teshuva with happiness and joy.